With tact, just what are you trying to say? You got a blank face, which irritates. Communicate, pull out your body piece. You see dimensions into. State your case with black or white. But when one little cross leads to shots, grit your teeth. You run for cover so discreet. Why don't they do what they say? Say what you mean. One thing leads to another. You told me something wrong. I know I listened too long, but then one thing leads to another. The impression that you sound pulses in and out like a sail. But the long face.
Hi, this is John Cullen. Welcome to another episode of Hypothetically Speaking. In this episode, I'm joined once again by Andy Loue, joining us from Sweden. Andy is the author of the Substack post talking about the solution to the Charlie Kirk murder. And the bedtime story that I posted has been viewed, I think now over 18,000 times. And then last week, Andy was here with Mitch Snow, and we got to talk about sort of the coordinated findings between the two. And that broadcast also has been viewed, I think, now over 15,000 times. So given the reaction to this content, I thought it would be helpful to have Andy back on the show and walk us through the movements of these aircraft. Right? So this is circumstantial evidence, right? This is not at the scene of the crime per se, but it can be quite damning, or it might be completely coincidental. And we're going to let the audience figure that out for themselves. But it's great to have you back on the show, Andy. Welcome back to Hypothetically Speaking. Good to see you.
Yes, thank you, John. And it's been an eventful week for me. But I'm glad that the message is being reached and seems to be appreciated. So thank you.
Again, thank you. And thanks for taking the risks that you're taking. I mean, this is not a game. This is serious stuff. You know it. And you know, where this is leading is scary stuff. And so this is why I think it's important to take a look at these movements and see if we can figure out collectively, is this just a coincidence? And if so, wow. You know, that's one heck of a coincidence. Or is the, you know, there's a saying in the IC, there's no such thing as three coincidences, right? And so we're going to explore this, and you took the time to pull the lens back. So when I started researching the Kirk thing, I was fixated on N1098L and its movements that day, period. Right. And that's part of my personality with the Asperger's thing. I'm uniquely focused on things. And to the extent that even though I think I broke the story of an Egyptian plane on the tarmac, I didn't really care about it. I couldn't understand what Candace was talking about so much. I was like, who cares? All right, there's an Egyptian plane there. It's not flying over the murder scene. So to me, it's like, okay, that's secondary. It's interesting, but it's not at the murder scene, right? So I wasn't as interested in the Egyptian planes, but you did something that I totally did not do, which is you pulled the lens back and you started looking at activity in the region, and you started seeing some things, and you started looking at the sister ship, right? The other Hades aircraft and its movements. And then this SAM 702 thing enters the picture. And to tell you the truth, before last week when we spoke, I didn't know anything about SAM 702. I didn't pay attention to any of that stuff. So at the same time, though, I think it's relevant. I think it's important. And I think that if we look at the facts objectively, which is what I'm going to ask you to do, is just kind of lay out what happened in the days before and the days after, do we see any patterns here? Do we see any patterns that are inexplicable? Or might it be reasonable to chalk all this up to coincidence? Right. And I think, we got to, we should look at this with an even hand. So I'm going to turn it over to you to sort of walk the audience through the process that you went through. Right. So at some point you said, you know what? I want to take a closer look at this. And you talked about how you built sort of an AI tool to help with some of the correlations. And so that I was fascinated with that. So that's kind of what I want to get into. Aircraft movements, correlation, and the process that you went through and sort of the discoveries. And when you got the chills and the goosebumps on your arms. I don't know if goosebumps means the same thing in Sweden as it does here in Sweden. It might mean you're sick or something, but here when you get goosebumps, it's like, ooh,
Yeah, same.
Okay. So, walk us through that, if you will. What was the process? When did you start investigating it? When did you start finding things that you found really disturbing?
Yeah, yes, thank you. No, but it was based out of curiosity, really. I mean, it was already to begin with, it was too odd to have this aircraft dip low both before and shortly after the assassination. And as you disappeared, understandably so, and no one else investigated it, I thought, well, I have to start looking into it. And you mentioned this AI tool, and I developed it just as a way to be able to work more efficiently with my everyday projects, to build computer systems, or also with legal cases. It's a tool that it doesn't replace, of course, your thoughts or your initiatives, but it helps get to the next step very fast. And I was out of ideas, so I thought, well, maybe I should take a look at this. And I don't know how I came to widen the lens, really, but flight radar or ADBS exchange was the tools that were available, really. So I started looking at N1098L and to see what had it done before, and I could see the dip and low. I have different terms for this, but the low flights, and I could see a pattern that it was doing it always in adjacent to an airport. So it looked like an aborted approach, and I can also see that it did so at many airports where I suspect that radio traffic control recordings are rarer. I haven't confirmed that, but I got that feeling, which I suppose to Provo is not the case. But I couldn't see much more patterns immediately. But I think it just came to me to look at the actual flight in question, or the two flights. The first flight from El Paso or Fort Bliss to Kalispell looked very normal. If I remember correctly, it rose to 41,000 feet, as it usually does, and it maintained there. But on the return flight, I could see that it did not climb to 41,000 feet. Instead, it climbed to 37,000 feet. And looking at the chart of the altitude chart, I could see that it was not, as it usually is, a flat line. It was a jagged line. So I started looking when did it do these descents from 37,000 feet to 30, and from 30,000 feet to literally 200 feet above ground level. And there is a video called Life is Driving, quite famous for the investigators, where he has this camera on all the way through from before the assassination up until long after. And by syncing that with the flight path or the altitude path, I could see that the aircraft, as it reacted to Charlie grabbing the mic, it stayed on 37,000 feet when Charlie was throwing hats and the people were cheering. But as soon as he stepped on the stage and engaged with the crowd, that's when the aircraft descended rapidly to 30,000 feet, where it held. And I suspected already then that there is a sharp descent soon coming. And I could confirm that the sharp descent towards 200 feet above ground level was at the point in time where whatever happened to Charlie happened. So the goosebumps you're talking about were coming. I remember consulting my AI tools that, damn it, I should have used a VPN for this. And not that it would have helped really, because yeah, as I've done later. But so that was the first revelation. Then, or not then, I was reminded then of the 702 findings that had happened maybe in December. I did this research last week of March, first week of April. And I started looking at that, and immediately I could see that there are no obvious overlaps. Well, sorry, I could see one overlap that gave me some ideas. I could see that SAM 702 was present at Fort Bliss Airport or tarmac at the same time that both XL10 and 1098L and XL21 and 2100L, they were present at the same time there. Also, another Global 6000 was present.
How many days? So this was the day before or the after? When was this that they were all in the same place at the same time?
This is on September 9th. Would have been after the testimony given by Mitch. So sometime after the Fort Huachuca Mitch incident.
So on the 9th, all three aircraft, the two Hades and SAM 702, all end up at Fort Bliss and are there as of 5 p.m., 6 p.m. local time on September 9th. Is that about right, give or take?
Yes, I think the SAM flight arrived shortly before 1 p.m. Local time. I might be wrong on the figures, but I'm pretty sure
we'll
that's
pull it up. I've got the pictures here. Yeah.
Yeah, and also in about 1.5 hours after that, N1098L arrives, and as I remember it, N2100L is already on site. Also, is another Global Express 6000 in the ARIS program. It's also on site, but I never investigated that really. But I just could see that it was there.
All right. So this is the day before Charlie's killed at Fort Bliss, not Fort Huachuca. Right. Yes. So Fort Bliss is important because Fort Bliss is the departure point for N1098L. So the fact that N1098L and N2100L are at the same place at the same time and SAM 702 is there.
Yeah.
All right. So I want the audience just, kind of make a mental note of that. You've got both Hades aircraft, SAM 702, and another Bombardier. Is it a Bombardier G6500? The Ares plane? Is that a?
Yes, Bombardier 6000. So
6000. So older generation. So sort of first generation before Hades was called Ares, and that's there too. And yes. SAM 702. All right. So now, for the audience, you guys might be thinking, so what, are we putting on a show? Is this show and tell? Are we showing some VIPs? So, Mitch explained to us that these SAM flights are, VIP, Pentagon, White House type stuff. This is high level stuff. It's like special access military. It's a big deal. And so are they like showing off and saying, here's the old unit, the 6000 series, the Aries. Here's our new Hades stuff. Now, does that necessarily mean it's a planning session? I don't know. Sometimes they get, what's it called? Overconfidence bias. And people show off the thing, and it's like that duper's delight thing. They want to show off Hades, and then the next day they're going to use it. Nobody's going to imagine we did that, right? So that's the other side here. I want people to consider both sides of the coin. One side of the coin is, holy mackerel, we've discovered the conspiracy of conspiracies. The other side is, no, they were just showing the stuff off to some big shot. And the day before, they didn't say, oh, and psst, by the way, tomorrow, pay attention. Is that likely? Was it a planning meeting?
Yeah, we don't
know, right? So that's why it's important to put this stuff on the table, look at it with a critical eye, and try it. Again, this is inductive reasoning. The more evidence we get, the easier it'll be for us to try and figure out what was the most likely scenario, because people are hiding things from us here. Right? They're not sharing the whole story. Like, we don't know who was on SAM 702. We don't know who was aboard N1098L, right? We can't get those flight manifests. So this is a pivotal point. This is why I want to kind of make a mental note here. We've got all the Hades aircraft and SAM 702 at Fort Bliss. The departure point the next morning for the N1098L flights. So when N1098L departs that next morning for Kalispell, Montana, it sounds as if, I'm assuming here, it's leaving behind on the tarmac SAM 702, or did SAM 702 depart the night before? I think SAM 702 departs before this all happens, right?
Yes, it does. It looks as if it flies from Fort Huachuca to Fort Bliss. I'm speculating, having lunch or something. And then 1.5 to 2 hours later, M1098L arrives, and they spend 2 or 3 hours on the same place. And then directly from El Paso, Fort Bliss to Andrews, the SAM flight goes on the 9th.
Yeah, so I noticed that too. So that the SAM 702 flight gets out of the vicinity before it all happens and heads back to Virginia.
Yes,
and is no longer in the theater, so to speak. But the fact that the two Hades planes are there. All right, so continue from this point. So now the N1098L, we know that it's at 41,000 feet on the way up, descends to 200 feet above ground level, slows to 115, 113 knots, reascends back up to cruising, goes up to Kalispell, Montana. I'm assuming they refuel, because that's quite the leg. And then they head back. And then you're pointing out that when they came back, they did not ascend all the way to 41,000 feet. Almost like, there's no reason, we know what we're doing. We're gonna be going back down. There's no reason to climb another 4,000 feet. So they stay at 37. And then when Charlie takes the mic and as he is hit,
so on both those events, it simultaneously descends. So there are two separated from each other. It looks as if it goes from because he enters stage and something will happen or can happen. The benevolent explanation is that they are surveilling, let's say, but it seems like they're aware of something is about to happen. Let's go down to 30,000 feet from where we can descend faster. Where they hold until the boom, and then they go all the way down.
tell us about the other aircraft, if you will, if we're ready to move to the N2100L. What can you tell us
Yeah, I
about
mean,
that
I could,
aircraft?
yeah, if you want to, I can also, because I had another find on this aircraft
Yeah.
and the SAM flights.
Stay there, then keep going.
Yeah, so I looked, didn't expect to find anything else, but I did look at the potential overlaps between the SAM flights and the, I say XL10, the N1098L. That's XL10 for those
Right.
listening.
Right.
So I was looking for overlaps, and as you know, I only found the Fort Bliss. But I turned it around and instead started looking at what if I were the SAM flight? Okay, what was I doing in that case? And I could see that they arrived in Fort Carson, Colorado Springs, on the 7th at the night. And I looked, what is Axel doing? And nothing suspicious, if I use that word. But in the morning of September 8th, they're still at Fort Carson. And I look at XL10 and it does a lot of weird stuff, I would say. But it looks weird. It's holding a pattern, just circling in the sky for a long time.
Where is it doing this?
No, it's Amarillo, Texas.
Okay. Amarillo, Texas.
And that's obviously not Fort Carson. It's a distance, but it's holding this pattern. And then I thought, okay, the SAM flight leaves at 11 a.m. local time from Fort Carson.
Hang on. Amarillo, Texas?
Then you will be interested to hear where it did its next maneuver, because it was first, it started at Lubbock.
So they're circling in Amarillo. SAM 702 is at Fort Carson in Colorado 2 days prior to the shooting.
Yes, September 8th in the morning. And I know that SAM flight leaves from Fort Carson at 11 a.m. local time. The N1098L is circling from 9:30 a.m. until 10 a.m. almost sharp, where it leaves the holding pattern, moves down, makes the same maneuver, which I call the Provo maneuver. Low flight, literally a copy-paste of the Provo maneuver.
And in Amarillo, Texas.
Yes, and then it's obviously far away from Fort Carson, but the point is that it looks to me that they are demonstrating something for a meeting being held before the flight leaves at 11 a.m. from Fort Carson.
The Amarillo dip and low and slow maneuver, is it done near a body of water? Is there a reservoir? Is there a lake? Is there a river?
I don't know right now, but I do know that it's done as in Provo by the airport. So it looks like an aborted landing. So it's the same pattern.
Another missed approach.
We can see that on almost on every flight except for the one we will talk about later, the St. George flight. It's always an aborted landing excuse available.
The missed approach. So one of the things we're also going to want to do when we finish recording this is search the air traffic control recordings and see if we can pick up those SAM 702 or N1098L air traffic control communications. And if we can get the missed approach in Amarillo, that'll be interesting to hear. Is that the same pilot, the same voice that we hear talking to Provo Tower? Because I've heard other recordings after Charlie, and it's not the same pilot.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not the same guy. Yeah, right. So this is another interesting twist. So SAM 702s at Fort Carson could very easily be doing a remote monitoring in the the big comms room with all the screens. They're watching what's happening. This is 2 days prior. This is sounds somewhat like it could be a dry run, or again, just them showing off, right? And so we're putting the evidence on the table for the audience to say, what is the more likely scenario?
Yeah,
right?
Of course.
Right? Are these guys just showing off and showing the big shots? Here's what we can do with this. And, inside they're giggling because they know what's going to happen in 2 days, but the people they're showing it to don't know. Is that the most likely scenario? Or is it more likely that SAM 702 is there to double check and give the blessing and give the
Yeah, I
green
mean,
light.
it's both dangerous and difficult to speculate on it. I mean, I'll try to find benevolent explanations,
Right.
such as there is a threat on Charlie. Let's watch him. This is our most capable.
That's really
But
benevolent.
if that were the case, they were very poor in watching him.
See, to me, the benevolent explanation is the thing that everybody gets upset with me about, which is, to me, the benevolent explanation is Charlie Kirk was a spy working for Syria. And so
Yeah, but it's a theory. I can understand
it's
you.
it's a kooky.
It's a hard
I'm not
time.
saying it's real. I'm saying it's kooky, but it would lead to, well, that's why we had to kill him with Hades. You know, this is a Syrian, or imagine if it was an Iranian. Imagine if Charlie Kirk was actually an Iranian spy. That's just a wacky concept. But if he was an Iranian spy and he's consulting with the president in the Oval Office not to go to war with Iran, and the CIA goes to the president, dude, he's Iranian. Charlie Kirk was adopted. He's an Iranian spy. And that's what the president gets this report from the CIA, and he's looking at all these guys like, you're kidding me. They're like, no, he's an Iranian spy. That's why he doesn't want you to go to war with Iran.
Yeah, but in that scenario, I mean,
To me, that's a benevolent explanation would be, oh, he's a bad guy. So we had to use, this big, expensive, fancy stuff to send a message to everybody. Hey, you try this again. We're going to use this on you. But it's absurd. In other words, the benevolent explanations are so far out. Are they likely? And that's the problem.
no, that's
here.
the problem.
Right. That's
Yeah.
the problem, is the benevolent. And even when I come up with it, everybody's like, but Charlie was a God-loving guy. I'm like, I get it. I'm trying to come up with a rational reason that you
But
would
maybe there
deploy.
could have been a Colin Powell explaining to the commander-in-chief that he is a spy.
So was he
Might not
duped?
even be one.
Was the president duped? Was the president told, hey, you got to get rid of this guy? This is a danger. This is a clear and present danger to the presidency.
Yeah. Or was the president set up?
Quite possibly.
Like
Or did the
Robinson.
president set somebody else up? That's another, we talked about that last
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
The
yeah,
president set up
yeah.
J.D. Vance.
I can cover quickly that on this topic because what could have happened in Fort Carson
Mhm.
was repeated again the day after. Before the SAM flight left Fort Huachuca to go to Fort Bliss to intercept with the actual aircraft, we have heard from Mitch, and it's been corroborated from other sources as well. Not that I don't trust Mitch, I do. That he observed these people around 8 in the morning, 8, 9 in the morning.
Mhm.
And then they obviously went somewhere. They had something else to do because the aircraft, the SAM flight doesn't leave until closer to 12 in the early morning. So, and in these times, in between the alleged intercept in the morning and the SAM flight leaving, there is yet again a Provo demonstration flight, as I call it. The same maneuver is performed again. And then obviously after that has been performed, the SAM flight leaves for Fort Bliss, and then everyone meets up on
where was
if
this?
they meet up.
All right, so where on this particular scenario, where was the loop de loop and the slow and the low and slow? Where did it perform?
Laughlin, Nevada. Laughlin, Nevada.
Interesting.
Laughlin, yeah.
All right, so September 8th, we've got SAM 702 at Fort Carson, and we've got N1098L doing the low and slow in Amarillo. September 9th, we've got SAM 702 at Fort Huachuca, and we've got N1098L going low and slow doing the dippy do again, but this time near Laughlin, Nevada. That's
Yes.
right? All right,
Yeah.
so this is the 2 days before Charlie is shot, September 8th and September 9th. September 8th, SAM 702 is at Fort Carson, Colorado. N1098L is doing the dippy-do maneuver in Amarillo, Texas. The next day, Sam 702 is at Fort Huachuca. Mitch believes he's bumped into the people who were aboard Sam 702, sees them at the hotel, sees them on base.
Mhm.
And he's like, who the hell are these people? What are they doing? But at the time, Mitch doesn't know there's a Sam flight. Mitch wasn't walking around on the tarmac.
No.
Mitch just sees a bunch of people that look a little out of place 6 miles from the Mexican border. Right? So he's like, what the hell are these? This looks like brass, man. What are all these guys doing? And has no idea Sam 702 is on the tarmac.
Exactly.
All right. So they do the dippy do out in Laughlin, Nevada. So where do they depart? They depart from Fort Bliss, fly out to Laughlin, do the thing, and go back to Bliss.
From Fort Bliss, target airport is Boise Airport, but it goes
Boise.
via Laughlin.
And does the maneuver, goes to Boise, Idaho. And then what? Wasn't there a maneuver? There was something that happened, I think, was it the next day that I want to talk about, where N2100L, the sister ship, flew out to San Diego and flew out over the Pacific Ocean. What the hell are they doing out there? Where are they going? And then they turn around and come back. I'm like, you guys just empty the porta potty out there? What are you doing? Why are you flying off the coast of Sandy? Where are you going? And then you turned around like, oops, I guess we weren't supposed to go out here. You looking for UFOs? Or did they take all the evidence from the prior day and dump it in the ocean? I don't know. I don't, hypothetically, I have no idea what the hell's going on. But the next day, we see N2100L fly out past San Diego out over the Pacific Ocean. Now, I don't know that we've seen a whole lot of that in the past.
No, I'm not sure. I've seen it. I've seen that flight. It looks very peculiar. And I can't swear to it if it's happened before. But the timing is curious to say the least.
The next day.
Interesting theory.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know that's even a theory. It's just like, what are they doing? They were on the tarmac next to their sister ship, and now they're heading out over the ocean. It's like if I had a gun to get rid of and I gave it to you and I said, hey, you're heading out to the lake tonight, right? You're doing some ice fishing. Here, you don't mind, drop this off on. I mean, this, again, it's like, this isn't, or it's just a coincidence. Or it's just a coincidence. I don't know. I don't know. We got to put more evidence together. What else are we seeing here with these aircraft? So it's now done the same maneuver 2 days in a row prior to. Sam 702 is in the region observing, apparently. Maybe not. Maybe not.
Yep.
But then Sam 702 heads back to Virginia the night before.
Yes.
Mitch spends the night in Fort Huachuca at the same hotel. And Mitch doesn't fly out until the next day because he lands in Salt Lake City pretty much as Charlie was just shot. And it's on the TVs in the terminal when he gets into the airport. So Sam 702 is out of the region. Sam 702 is back in Virginia. Everybody woke up in their beds that morning.
Yes, likely.
But N2100L is still sitting on the tarmac, I believe, in Fort Bliss.
Yeah, correct.
All right. And now so this next morning, they're all in the same place at the same time, meaning N2100L and N1098L are both in Fort Bliss. Sam 702 is gone. And now it's time to get rid of the evidence. And so I'm really curious what happens the day after, the flights after Charlie Kirk is killed. Are those drones disposed of? Is that what they were doing, collecting the UAVs when they came back 25 minutes later? Right? They passed the crime scene 25 minutes after Charlie was shot at 200 feet and 113 knots. I mean, I got to believe there's an alarm going off in the cockpit when you're at 113 knots. You can't go much slower. And the thing is, it's going to start to really drop at 113.
Yeah, they need the flaps and everything at that speed, of course.
So, no wonder they have to call it a missed approach. But how is it a missed approach if that destination wasn't in the flight plan? If the flight is from El Paso to Kalispell, what a missed approach. You weren't supposed to be in Provo.
Yeah, I mean, and you got a hold of the flight, the communications with the tower,
right.
And one would assume that they had an earlier conversation too, that we're coming in to land, because as it was not planned, it should have somehow communicated that they were
on and also approach. Right. This is Axle 10 on approach.
Axle 10, traffic straight ahead is a Cessna at 5,500. We'll be making left traffic.
Looking for the traffic, Axle 10, and we're on the mist.
Axle 10, maintain 9,000. Fly the published missed approach.
9,000 published missed, Axle 10.
Axle 10, you're above that Cessna traffic. Contact approach 118.85.
1885, roger.
And we don't hear that. The first communication.
But it's also many people that aren't as invested in these things are saying that why didn't more people see this aircraft or this aircraft? And the obvious answer is, of course, that it looked normal. It was approaching an airport to land, so it doesn't stand out in any way.
Reminds me of the biggest shooting. People are like, well, why didn't anybody notice the helicopters? Because nobody's looking for them. Nobody's looking for a huge business jet flying around, and it's over the lake. Lake Utah is like a salty lake. There is a marina there, but it's not like a major boating destination. But there is a marina. But like you said, it's the flight path. Everybody coming into the airport is on that flight path, so it's not going to look weird. All right, listen, we're going to take a break. For the audience, you can refresh your beverages. Andy, I encourage you to do the same. We'll be back in just a couple minutes, and we're going to dig in further into the strange movements of the Hades aircraft and SAM 702. I'm John Cullen. This is Hypothetically Speaking. We'll be back in just a moment.
This is where I stumbled across the work largely of John Cullen.
So there's a guy named John Cullen who did an analysis of the shooting, and his conclusion...
a relative?
A relative?
Yeah.
No, it's spelled different. John worked for Oracle. He's some on-the-spectrum code head.
Oh, can you kind of walk us... How did that happen? I mean, I can't imagine you reached out to Tim Pool or Steven Crowder or a whole... you didn't reach out to everybody in the podcast business, right? So what was this about? Like, how did that happen?
Well, I had seen your work before, and I think just the way that you do the ballistics and the way that you explain the different trajectories and paths the bullets take, to me, that needs to be addressed. And the way you describe it, it actually makes sense. It explains the different bullet paths, and we can see those in real time, that there are distinctly different bullet paths.
One of the videos that I've seen online is from a gentleman named John Cullen, who talks about the possibility of a second shooter.
I believe John Cullen did a lot of work on getting the autopsy data.
There's a guy named John Cullen. If you don't follow him on Twitter, you probably don't know who he is.
People have been sending me this video for the past 3 days. It's a Rumble video. There's 4 guys on the screen. One guy, the main guy talking, is wearing a black hat and sunglasses. You can imagine, and it's 2.5 hours long. You could imagine, I'm like, no, it's all right. I'm not going to watch that. And I keep getting this video. No, you got to watch it. This is really, So last night, I finally watch it. Yeah, was the vax for something else? And on this video is Dr. Scott Jensen, Dave Collum, and John Cullen, and then Tommy. It's his video channel, Tommy's channel.
There's also helicopters. John Cullen. Do you know who John Cullen is?
If you want to know more about it, a guy named John Cullen did a great series of YouTube videos on this. And he cites the record, like he shows the evidence. This is not conspiracy theory stuff.
John Cullen also has a lot of interesting questions about the spy drones, the spy planes over Charlie Kirk's assassination. We have military spy planes launching drones over the place at Charlie Kirk's killing. Plane arrives 3 hours early, drops to 200, slows to a minimum speed. Multiple drones, and why were these spy planes flying overhead at the time?
John Cullen. Yeah, we're gonna reference John Cullen's work a lot tonight because he's this like deeply autistic type of researcher that just has a YouTube channel that very few people have ever heard of.
Yes.
But he's the sheriff with like the glasses, and,
right?
And he's like a very funny guy.
John Cullen's video that does show, if you look at people who were injured and the actual line of sight and where it was to the stage, just kind of what the possibilities were and how many shots were truly taken.
The most parsimonious explanation for what you've got captured in this single video, we don't have to worry about aligning it or anything like that, is you've got 3 kinetic events in a straight line. That tells you had an object, but you definitely have the strong suggestion of a line that you could extrapolate from.
Like I said, John Cullen, man, he'd be a great guy to have on the show if I could ever find him, man.
And you can go to John Cullen's YouTube channel and dig back through it all because he did it all in these like 1 hour long podcasts and sort of exposés that takes a long time to get through. As you approach the Las Vegas shooting, and this is stuff that John Cullen, what I'm remembering is specifically John Cullen's reporting on this because this is one of the things that he zeroed in on that people then were like, whoa.
Your theories on COVID are amazing. I know that Robert Malone endorses them or is impressed by them at least. And so, yeah, you're the new man. You're the guy doing what we need to be done. You're the ultimate internet sleuth. And so hats off to you, John. Great work.
Thank you, Jimmy.
And I really appreciate you taking time to come on and explain all this to our audience.
I'm with you that this is a very intriguing hypothesis. I like this a lot more than the, there was never any pandemic.
You know what? You know who also thinks there might be some legs here is Brett.
Sure, how this interplays with John Cullen's work, where he has posited with considerable evidence, although enough of the evidence is sort of not available that it's hard to fully assess. But he has posited that SARS-CoV-2, while real, was not the thing making people sick, that it was bird flu all along.
Yes. H7N9.
Yes, not the same one,
right?
But bird flus being of a type, and there are a whole set of relatively closely related viruses, of which the one that he suggests was responsible for the deaths from COVID, in quotes, were actually deaths from bird flu H7N9, as opposed to this one now H5N1. But they are all relatively closely related. So I'm not saying that this is that, but that bird flu as a thing that is actually responsible for the pathogenicity is already an idea that's circulating in some careful intellectual space.
Yep. So that's why there may well be something to John Cullen's work on this. He does clearly have an evidentiary point that it's worth considering.
So we've established, we've got these aircraft in the theater, so to speak. We've established that prior to Charlie Kirk getting killed, there was some activity that looked similar. They were doing the same sort of descent, going low and slow. They did it in Amarillo, Texas. They did it in Laughlin, Nevada, while SAM 702 was at Fort Carson, Colorado, and at Fort Huachuca. And then SAM 702 heads back the night before, and then the morning of, we see N1098L do its maneuvers next to UVU, and then the next day, N2100L starts flying out to California. Now, I'm not sure if it lands in San Jose or something. I didn't zoom in that close to see where it was going, but I started tracking, some of those activities. The other thing I did was I started tracking SAM 702 for a month. I wanted to know.
Did you see the?
It went to your neck of the woods. It flew over to like Norway, right?
Yeah, I noticed that. I think also Stockholm.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't want to freak you out, but yeah, I mean,
yeah,
bro.
no,
SAM 702, like, a week or two later, here it goes off to Europe. And I'm like, where's it going? And I think it was so that's a little disturbing as well. So looking at the
I think it could have been the NATO, a NATO meeting, but I haven't confirmed it. But I'm just guessing, hoping it's a NATO meeting.
Or maybe IKEA shareholder meeting, maybe, or I don't know. I don't know.
Maybe.
All right. What else started, really standing out to you as being somewhat suspicious type activity, as far as, you're doing all this analysis, you're doing the correlation, and at what point did you feel compelled to start putting your thoughts to paper, so to speak, for the Substack article? I mean, and gathering your thoughts.
Yeah, because
please.
Because I had no intention of publishing anything or really being here myself, so I went to X. I didn't have many followers, but I started tagging people, DMing people, sending mails to tip lines, and this was about April 6th, because I thought that everyone must know this. I mean, this is if everyone can dig here, we might be able to get somewhere or dismiss, but. And it was only the day after, the 7th of April, that I noticed that my devices were all compromised. And then I got a little bit scared. So we went into hiding. I think I told that story. But so it was basically on that
Tell us a
day.
little more. Hang on. So when you say, your devices were compromised, so you've been posting
yes.
some stuff on X, and then tell us more. Like, how did you figure that out? I know you're a technical guy. How did you figure out your devices were compromised? What was happening?
But the first thing that happened was that I got suspended on X, and I wasn't posting anything strange, hardly anything. And the suspension note said, "You've been suspended." Your account has been blocked. In order to reinstate it, we need to verify your identity. We need to verify that I am me, basically.
Yeah.
So I expected a CAPTCHA or an ID check, but I hit it, and then nothing happened, and you're back on. But your reach is limited, it said. And I'm not saying that was the point in time where I was infected, but I'm a little bit suspicious that was the point in time, because shortly after, also my Claude AI account was blocked. Couldn't use it. It said that I had reached my weekly limit, and I hadn't. I know how much I used it, and I wasn't coding, so I was unable to do further research. And it was when I was investigating the St. George story that my account was suddenly blocked on Claude, and then I could also see that my name, my actual home address, my children's schools, our cars, everything was Googled from Washington, D.C.
Whoa, say that again. Your name, your address. So your personal information was what? What happened?
It was Googled from Washington, D.C. And also
How can you tell that? How do you see that stuff? For the audience, a lot of people in the audience are like, how do you know that? Like, how can you tell somebody in Washington Googled your name? Like, how do you tell that stuff?
No, but you can use Google Trends as long as you know how to use it correctly. And of course, my name or home address that is also protected address should not be Googled from DC.
Right.
There is
Right.
no reason. And also, whoever I spoke to, even if I turned off my phone and spoke to someone and talked about an address or hotel or something, whatever I spoke about was Googled as if from an AI surveillance tool.
Wow.
And also, I woke up one morning, my phone was super hot, had been fully charged in the evening, was super hot. And I was thinking, why is it so hot? And then I went to the control center and see that my microphone is on all the time. And I have some other things too. But then later on, I did a forensic analysis of my phone and could conclude that it was buffering up data in chunks of 2 gigabytes, sending them off to a location which I can never track. So yeah, we went into hiding. But before we went into hiding, I wrote this article. I published it on Substack and thought at least there is somewhere. And then you found it. I'm so grateful for that. So for those 3-4 months, I started to relax again. We moved back home and reduced security and stuff. Now it was scary. I'm sure you can relate, John.
Dale Comstock is shaken by this. And he's probably killed more people than any man alive. I mean, he's one of the deadliest men to walk the earth, and this shakes him up. All right, so he's saying, I'm not suicidal. And this is a Delta Force guy that I think is, hasn't lost a step, if you ask me. Yeah. So this is scary stuff, man. And then 48 hours ago, we see that N2100L was visiting Nashville.
Yes. Yeah. That looked, could be a coincidence, of course, but it's also
right. Well, the barbecue is excellent. And, if you're hanging out in El Paso barbecue, although it is pretty good, it's not as good as Nashville barbecue. So you're going to have to fly all the way east to get that Brunswick stew.
Yeah, and they have to order ahead so that it's ready on the tarmac because they were only there for 15 minutes.
Really? They were only on the tarmac in Nashville for 15 minutes, and then they turned around and headed back, huh? And this is just a couple days ago. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it was. And it was on the same day that Barron was investigating the St. George confession.
And I believe, so this is about 48 hours ago that this occurred as we're recording this. I think Candace was not home. I heard somebody say she was in Wyoming or something like that, or Montana, or she was up in the wild Northwest. Yeah. So she wasn't there.
But no, I think she was home because she had a show, seemingly live from her studio.
Okay, then I easily
mistaken. And Barron also commented live on his show that it seemed to have flown over her place during her show.
Well, I did some research afterwards, and I went to, I guess it was probably just ChatGPT. And I said, well, how many times have N1098L or N2100L flown in the Nashville area in the last 18 months? And I think the answer I got back was 4 times.
Yeah, I found 3 times. Including the one yesterday or the day before yesterday.
Okay. So one of them was in November. And the date that it was in November was a period of time where Candace was not broadcasting. Like it's between 2 of her episodes, like, 272 and 271 or something like that. And there's a 10-day span between episodes. And in that 10-day span, is when we see the Hades plane in the Nashville area. So was she visiting with family? Was she out of town? The house was empty. And what a great time to go sweep her routers. Right? What a great time to query the routers. She's not home. Right? Let's query the routers and we'll find out everything she's up to. Get everything off her hard drive. Conceivably, hypothetically, I mean, this could all be just a coincidence, But is it possible? Is that what Hades has the ability to do? And again, it's like one of the things that you mentioned earlier was you were kind of shocked that people weren't taking notice of this. In other words, I reported on the planes, the Hades planes, and I'm reporting on the UAVs. And the only other person I think that mentioned both was Ian Carroll. Mentioned both the UAVs and the Hades stuff. Barron doesn't seem to want to talk about the UAVs at all, but he got deep on the Hades stuff, and he's the one that I learned about the St. George thing from. I learned about that watching Barron. And Candace did talk about Hades. In fact, Candace, I guess it was October 30th of 2025, Candace gave a pretty detailed description of what Hades was doing that day, but she doesn't mention the drones. And she doesn't mention Hades' drone capability, so to speak, I think. Let me play that clip for the audience right now. You guys watch. This was October 30th, 2025.
Yep.
In Wyoming, I received a rather shocking tip. There were, as I am sure you are aware, some inexplicable flights that were happening that day. And actually, they're not even inexplicable. They could very easily be explained. It's just that the feds are kind of declining to do so. And we don't really have much information about those flights. In particular, there was one flight that had I would say, I describe it as an interesting morning. It was contracted by our military. For whatever reason, this plane departed from the Biggs Army Airfield at 6:13 a.m. That's down in El Paso, Texas, right? And despite the fact that they were heading to Montana, they decided to make an unusual dip at 9:16 a.m. Again, this is in Utah time, okay? We're doing all this in mountain time. They dipped down to just 300 feet above ground over the Provo Airport runway, and they made a loop. I'm going to show you a screenshot here this is from Flight Radar, so you can see that loop. And again, this is a military plane, a military contracted plane, and we know it's military because it's leaving from a military base, okay? Really interesting thing happening there. Mark, if you want to jump on right now just to describe this for all of the women that are listening to this podcast, what we're seeing here with that chart on the bottom.
Happy to provide some mansplaining. So at the bottom, you can see the altitude and the airspeed of the plane. You see it take off, goes to level flight, and then you see it dip down in the middle there, and that's what we're looking at. The time on there says 3:16 p.m., but that's UTC. That's just the general time for airplanes. So you go back -6 hours to give you Utah time. So that gives us 9:16 a.m. And then it goes back up and then continues to Montana.
Okay. So it continued on to Kalispell, Montana, and then it lands for just under an hour before it again departs back for Texas. Once again, on its return trip, it dips again to just over 300 feet over the Provo Airport runway. We're going to show you that again. That this is from Flight Radar. That dip, I should tell you, because there has been a lot of speculation about it online. That took place approximately 26 minutes after Charlie was assassinated. So that dip took place 26 minutes after. And then the plane went back home, or back to the home base in El Paso. Now, it's possible, just to be fair here, that the plane was running a military training exercise that morning. Maybe they were training a new pilot on how to make a fake landing or something. I really don't know. But this flight path did indeed happen. We can confirm that. And it has been accurately reported that the plane is owned by a certain Loue, Lasai LLC, regarding which there haven't been any more details provided, because this has not exactly been the most transparent administration as they claimed they were going to be.
Okay, but after that, I don't think she said another word about it. And this is where we get to your hypothesis that you suggested potentially. Again, it's a hypothesis. Did Candace get a national security letter? She has access. She's interviewed the president. She's been in the White House, right? And at some point when she least expected it, did somebody hand her something and say, we need you to read this right now and sign it and acknowledge it because this is really important. Can you explain to people, how did you come to that? Because a lot of people in America weren't familiar with this, don't even know about them. And it's a really fascinating concept. Can you walk us through how you kind of came to this as a potential hypothesis?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to explain how I came to it and also clarify some things. Because when I wrote this Substack, I was very frustrated that no one seemed interested to cover it, even those who understood it. I mean, for example, Baron live on his show verified what I told you tonight, and described it as terrifying. Oh my God, you're onto something. This everyone could see on him that he understood it. And days went by and nothing happened. So I was I was wondering, what can it be? And I was also quite stressed. I mean, I knew that everything I write in the browser or in Claude or everywhere is being monitored. So, but I found this quite many testimonies of the use of national security letters. But I must be upfront with you, and I also published a Substack last weekend to clarify how it actually works. But legally they are not allowed to put a gag on, let's say, candles. What they can do is they can put a gag on the service provider to candles. They could say to the telecom provider of hers that we need to have all the records for, let's say, me. And the recipient of that letter is not allowed to disclose that they received it, and they are not allowed to disclose that they have given out any records. So it should not be able to be used the way it was hastily described. And I corrected it in the article. But in the correction article, I mean, the question remains, what type of means are there, if not that mean, to restrict or encourage or intimidate journalists, really, to avoid certain topics? In other words, what means do exist, if any? I think it does exist. What means do exist to create limited hangouts on scale? Because I think that's what we're seeing in this particular scenario.
There was a moment at some point, I forget exactly when this occurred, a number of journalists were invited to the White House. They were handed a binder, and everybody came out saying that it's the most transparent administration ever.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, did they round everybody up in a room and hand everybody these national security letters?
They walked out of the White House holding binders labeled the Epstein files. Now, it's not clear what's inside the binders and whether they'll be released to other media outlets. President Trump signed an executive order ordering that the files be released, but Attorney General Pam Bondi says the FBI hasn't turned over everything, and she's expecting more files tomorrow.
And say, here's the list of things you can't talk about. You can't mention this, you can't mention that, you can't mention this, and you can't mention that. I will tell you that yesterday I recorded an episode with Jimmy Dore. And
great.
And I've been a big fan of his for years. I love his work. He's a brilliant guy. He's really smart, and I love smart comedians. And in fact, I love his whole crew. Stephanie Zamora, the whole team he's got there. It's a very, very good show. So he invited me on the show, and we talked about all this stuff. And he's kind of stunned. He's like, how is nobody talking about this?
Oh, great.
Right?
Great.
He's like, this is such a emperor's got no clothes kind of moment for everybody. And I've been living through this type of stuff my whole career doing this. With COVID, my team built the mapping system that Johns Hopkins used to map COVID. And I'm there as a whistleblower saying, hey, everybody, there's not 10 dead in Hong Kong or Shanghai. And nobody's reporting that? It's like, how do you...
And you saw the raw data.
And you can click on it too. It's like you don't have to be the developer to click on Shanghai. You just click on Shanghai, and it says there's 7 people dead. And you'd think, well, that's kind of game-changing evidence in the story of a pandemic originating in China, and nobody touches it. And I'm like, how is that even possible? And so getting an opportunity to talk with Jimmy Dore yesterday and get Jimmy to share his frustration about how is no one talking about this? So the fact that Candace did address it up till October 30th and then didn't seem to talk about it ever again, the fact that Barron has dug into it. He's did the whole St. George thing. I want you to share with people what happened in St. George for those who didn't see the last sessions. But he won't touch the UAVs. Won't touch it.
No.
And the whole thing with Hades, right? The whole punchline with Hades is it launches UAVs. That's the punchline. It's not that it's a government jet. Ooh ah. There's lots of government jets. It launches drones. That's what makes this thing wild. And we see drones at the venue, and Barron won't talk about that. Now,
no,
Barron,
and also we know that just a few days ago, I think I sent you the article, the Washington Post reported about drones being launched from a private jet to basically shoot and kill these fishermen outside of Ecuador.
Ecuadorian fishermen who say a U.S. flagged vessel attacked them at sea and destroyed their boats. Their allegations come as the U.S. military expands its controversial anti-drug trafficking operations across the Eastern Pacific and Caribbean. The Trump administration insists the operations are legal. Nearly 200 people have been killed and more than 50 strikes targeting vessels that the U.S. says were being used by suspected narco traffickers.
Yes. And so even the mainstream acknowledges that this is a military technology.
And again, why are we killing fishermen in the Galapagos? This was in the Galapagos. It's like, are we running methamphetamines out of the Galapagos? What are we doing? It's like, and that just gets swept right under the rug. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to investigate that. But a bunch of fishermen got blown out of the water in the Galapagos by us. And to get to the Galapagos, by the way, it's way the hell offshore. That's not a ferry ride. To get to the Galapagos, it is way, way, way offshore. So that is a crazy thing. Can you share with everybody what happened, the St. George thing, the day after Charlie Kirk was killed? 33 hours later, Tyler Robinson walks into, I guess, a police department, sheriff's office. And can you walk us through what was also happening at that time? Because there's some coincidences there that I think the audience might find a little disturbing, having to do with messages.
I mean, this coincidence is really what was one too many for me, because let me tell you, the Tyler Robinson, according to the official documents, according to the warrants in the court case, he surrendered and arrived at Washington County Police Sheriff Station at 10:26 p.m. In the evening. And before then, it's been widely circulated. He's confessed on Discord one more time to a group in a group chat, saying that it was me, I did it, I'm sorry. And that was also reported. And that message was sent at, there's the debate when it was sent, but originally reported it was sent at 8:57 p.m. In Utah.
Was that shown in the pretrial? Was an image of those messages, was that shown at the pretrial? Do you remember?
I don't think it was shown, but it's referenced in the warrants by the investigating SPI agent. So the guy that testifies in the court is the guy that wrote these warrants in which it's referenced. So the time to officially look for is 10:26 p.m. But then I looked at EXO 21, that's N2100L, and it was in Ontario, California. And it flew 7:35 Utah time it left Ontario in California towards El Paso, which is a southeast bound flight. But instead of going directly southeast, it did a detour northeast and did a low fly down towards St. George. And northeast of St. George, we have Washington County. And the lowest point of the aircraft is literally above the sheriff's office. Or actually, it's not above, it's a few hundred yards to the left, to the west, in between, because I looked up the cell towers in that location. So it has placed itself in between the cell towers and the sheriff's station.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, it's at that point at exactly 8:57 p.m., which is the timestamp of that confession. Can be a coincidence, again, but what cannot be a coincidence for sure is that that aircraft left towards Washington County 3 hours before Tyler even surrendered. So it is obvious. It must be some sort of foreknowledge about what Tyler is supposed to do.
All right, so let's review. The airplane, this is N2100L, the other Hades aircraft, the sister ship, the next day. Now, this is after it did all this crazy stuff out by San Diego. So it does all the crazy, kooky stuff by San Diego, flies out over the ocean, it goes up by San Jose, it's got a very busy day. The last thing it does for the day is it's supposed to be going from Ontario back to Fort Huachuca, right? Back to Huachuca, Fort Bliss?
Fort Bliss.
Fort Bliss. So it's going to go Ontario to Fort Bliss. But it doesn't go Ontario to Fort Bliss.
No, it's a big detour.
And the detour is huge. It's like a 90-degree detour. It's like, it's way out of the way. Heads up to St. George, does the same dippy-do maneuver, and at its lowest point, so the day prior, the lowest point was adjacent to UVU at 200 feet and 115 knots. The day that it does this in St. George, it is the same time that the confession message shows up.
Yeah, and one thing more to add, Baron, he reported the day before I found this. Baron reported that he had found in a defense motions in the case that that literally proves, in my opinion, Baron's too, I think, that Tyler was actually there at 6:25 p.m. because the defense references a transcript of a recording that is timestamped. So one can see in both the defense and the state motion that this recording timestamps him asking for a lawyer at 6:25 p.m. And when I saw that, that's why I started to dig and found this. And then I sent it to Baron, and he reported it the same evening. Maybe he found it too, I don't know. But so what could have happened, if one wants to speculate, is that Tyler arrived and a Substack reader of mine sent me a message today saying to develop upon my theory. And him saying that Tyler arrived, they realized we can't book him yet because we don't have sufficient compromise. So they hold him in the waiting room. He can still use his phone. He's sitting there waiting, maybe with his parents. And the plane catches up, plants the message, and then he's allowed to surrender.
This is wild.
Yeah.
All right. This is just incredible. And I can't thank you enough for the work you've done. Again, this is scary stuff. And it may all be coincidental. And it's just a lot of coincidences. And again, I want the audience to make their own judgments. But at the end of the day, we're trying to figure out what was the role, if any, of these military aircraft in the killing of Charlie Kirk. Andy, thank you so much for being here. I'm John Cullen. Thanks for joining us. Hypothetically.
Thank you, Jan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
just like me. You wanna dance, I wanna lead. The sleight of the hand that you never seen. You wanna dance, you don't know how to get it on the floor, man. Don't hold back for anyone. Close your eyes, just follow the inner light. You count on me. You count on me. You count on me. I can fly, I can breathe, learn to sing like do re mi.